Alright guys, such comic again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. If the World Championship goes by the recent formbook, we will get a Los Angeles Thieves rematch with Miami Heretics in the second round of the tournament. We saw it twice back at DreamHack Dallas CDL Major 4, and it caused all sorts of drama on both occasions. The scrapping that we nearly held on the main stage between Scrappy and SupeR was explained by SupeR and the Heretics guys as of last night, and SupeR says that actually no, Scrappy was not his primary target in this situation, and despite the fact that he apologised afterwards even on Twitter, that did not calm things down when it came to their second series. If they do match up again, expect fireworks again on the main stage. Wrap up to Twitter your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. We're going to begin here just quickly on Kremp because his season is back underway if you guys have been following it. I know that a couple of you guys have even mentioned, certainly in our chat on the Dope Check watch parties that we did in the major, that you'll be going along. Anyway, Mid-Ohio, Kremp's back in action this weekend. The schedule is as follows if you guys are interested. Anyway, he does a little video talking about his intentions for the weekend, and he said something interesting like how much weight that he's dropped, but like he's still heavier than his teammate, and it like naturally is just going to cost him like half a second a lap, whatever he does. That's the dates anyway, and this weekend Kremp's back in action. And then of course it's not long until the Call of Duty World Championship either. Speaking of COD, I saw this yesterday and I thought it was a joke, but no, this is actually real life apparently in terms of what the new COD is going to be. Well, next year's COD. So just to run through it real quick, this year's Call of Duty, COD 2025, is rumoured to be Black Ops 7 or something like that. Effectively, a game that's set in, I don't know, what did they say, 2035? Or anyway, somewhere roughly between BO2, which was set in 2025 this year, and BO3, which was set in, I don't know, 2065 or something like that. So Black Ops 7 is going to be a futuristic COD, not as futuristic as the kind of OG jetpack games, but we think it is going to have some sort of advanced movement in there, whether that's wall running, whether that's a double jump or something to that effect. There may be something like that happening. Of course, it's a Treyarch game, probably helped by some other studios. Maybe Treyarch aren't the same as they used to be back in the day where they were making those games originally, but it will be having all the BO2 maps potentially remastered. That's a big talking point as well. So that's this year's COD, and for next year's season, which is very exciting, the year after that, we then go back to Infinity Ward, right? Welcome back. And they are set to produce another Modern Warfare game because I guess they work, they sell, so let's run it back again. So, of course, we had COD 4 Modern Warfare, we had Modern Warfare 2, we had Modern Warfare 3, and then, went Ghost and all these other games over time. Then in MW19, they brought back the Modern Warfare franchise name. We had MW2 again, we had MW3 again. And then now we have, for the first time ever, apparently, Modern Warfare 4. But the 4 is, well, as you guys can see, it kind of looks like a 4. But actually, this isn't a 4 in the traditional sense. This is a 4 written in Korean. And that's apparently because the game is going to be based in Korea or something like that. The campaign is planned to feature both South Korea and North Korea in a significant role, and there are factions that you play as to take down Makarov. So anyway, that's the strategy there. We don't really know, of course, what this game is going to look like at all in terms of the movement mechanics or what they may or may not bring over from Omni movements. There was a rumour that Omni movements that we have in BO6 will now be the staple movement in the engine from now and beyond. But there were some rumours that maybe Infinity Ward had second ideas about that, let's say, which could be good or bad, depending on your perspective, whether you like it or not. The pros always will tend to prefer more advanced, aggressive movement mechanics. Certainly, if you ask the majority of pros if they preferred the jetpack era, they will say yes for those that played back then. Okay, maybe part of that is because if you played public matches back then where there were no skill-based matchmaking, jetpacks was a great thing. And I totally get that. And, some players might disagree. I know that when I asked Afro about it back at Dallas Major 2, he said that his favourite move mechanics ever are the current ones we have, Omni movement. And maybe some other pros will agree with that in due course. Before we get to some of the drama, just quickly wanted to go through this. I think we mentioned this before, and Donny Temp mentioned to me a while ago that I think we ran a show, and then after the show he had to go, or not had to, but like he wanted to go and help taste test some of Kenny's mum's food. So Kenny's mum and dad anyway are have launched now, a food truck called Block Burners, and I'm pretty hungry, I'm not gonna lie, so I don't really want to look at these images for too long, but I ain't gonna lie, this looks absolutely fire. So if you guys are in the area, it's in Fort Worth, Texas, and you know, the boys did a good shout out for it last night. It's open 3 to 8 p.m. the rest of the week, and if you go on the Google Maps link that we put here, you'll find it's right about here. So like, it's just south of Fort Worth, basically. So if you guys are in the area, you want to stop by, I think it's probably going to be worth your time. But let's talk about some of the drama. Of course, we're going into the World Championship. Brian Stats the other day put together lowest ever Champs Series win percentage, so Trey's down here at third worst, unfortunately. But, you know, Goonjar, so, I mean, modern day fans won't even believe that Goonjar was a real person. But no, Goonjar, OG of the scene, right? He was actually in the CDL, technically, because he was a substitute for OpTic Gaming Los Angeles in the first year, although never got a chance to play. Cammy, Looney, Lacefield, Study, Assault, Zuma is actually here as well. There's been a talk about that. Dashy, maybe surprisingly, has only won half of his series he's played. We also got to consider that Dashy's played quite a few World Championships, right? He was even there in 2017 before his teams got any good. So that's worthy to note. Saint, Skyz, Nameless, some names that you may or may not expect. But the big talking point at the major, apart from, of course, the eventual champions and some of the other drama, was this on-stage kerfuffle, shall we say. Pretty rare that you see two players get into it on the main stage. And yeah, okay, there's occasionally drama, there's often trash talk, right? They might be fist bumping, but often words are exchanged, which may or may not be fair, depending on your perspective. But actually seeing players get physical with it, you know, grabbing each other's shirts, it's the type of stuff that very rarely ever happens. Of course, the famous example was Aches versus Nature, but, you know, we're talking 2012 at that point, over a dozen years ago. So, you know, Scrap and SupeR getting into it on the stage was obviously the big talking point at the time. It was doing the rounds in esports, and of course we kind of wondered, okay, where did this really come from? This, of course, was that original game. So Scrappy calls in the gunship, they lose the game 5, you know, he rushes over to the other side of the stage, and, you know, he's trying to give it large to Envoy before then getting into it with Scrap. And that's pretty much the crux of what he talks about here in a second. But of course, the funny thing about this is, especially based on what SupeR has to say in the clip that I'll share for you guys, is that while he does explain why it happened from his perspective in this way and why he went out on Twitter afterwards to apologize for what happened to Scrap, because, you know, you can see it here how he effectively, you know, punches Scrap's hand into his own face, and Scrap wasn't very happy about it, and therefore he decided to give it large to him as a result. And I think that was probably fair enough. After they played again, and SupeR and Heretics then got slammed by Thieves on the Sunday, it wasn't like Thieves were going to take that particularly lightly. So we'll see that again in a second, but in a bit of a docu-series that Heretics have come out with, and it's good to see more teams getting involved in this stuff. I know that Heretics have done it for a little bit of time. I know as well that many OpTic fans are like, please, can we get like a process or something this year? Because it's obviously been a tricky year for OpTic, to say the very least, and, you know, but things maybe are starting to finally come good at the right moment for the Green Wall. So I know that lots of the fans would like to see some sort of documentary based on that, because tomorrow is when that EWC documentary launches with Drazah and all that, and we'll see that in due course as well. But yeah, SupeR on his altercation with Scrap, this is what he has to say.
Fui a darle el puño a los Thieves. El primero fue Scrappy y cuando le di el puño, él tenía su puño cerca de la cara. Le di el puño, yo no recuerdo dárselo muy fuerte, pero por lo visto le rebotó en la cara. Yo no me di cuenta hasta que acabó el partido y me lo dijo Metal, y se lió ahí, pues lo más gordo, porque la gente creía que yo tenía beef con Scrappy, que le pegué en la cara. Cuando yo realmente, cuando le di el puño a Scrappy, no estaba ni mirándole a él, estaba mirando al Envoy, que era el que estaba buscando. Y nada, y se lió por eso. Bajamos del stage y cuando Metal me dijo lo que pasó, que como he dicho antes no me di cuenta, fui a donde estábamos los equipos y busqué a Scrappy para pedirle perdón porque es que no lo hice a propósito, y me dijo que todo estaba bien, que eso son cosas que pasan en caliente y que son cosas de dentro del juego, que fuera del juego está todo bien.
So I think this makes a lot of sense, and we probably saw it happen like that in real time, because Envoy was the guy giving it large to SupeR especially, and also to the rest of the team. I mean, not even just the rest of the team, but Envoy had made the comments about the Challengers players, and look, maybe he's right to some degree, maybe he's wrong to another degree. Envoy certainly stood by those comments for some time, but Envoy also made the comment in that more recent podcast about the fact that as far as he's concerned, SupeR doesn't play the game in the right way. I think Envoy said that if I played like SupeR, I'd have a 1.6 type thing. So kind of implying that SupeR's just playing for kills, not really being the most impactful on the team. And to be fair, there's been an argument with Cellium for many years to say, because if you look at Cellium's numbers, his KD, great, spectacular. His impact seems pretty reasonable. But in terms of, kills for 10 minutes, engagements, those kind of numbers, Cellium's nowhere near as strong. But also that's kind of just been his playstyle. And I think with Cellium, when you're winning and when things are going well, Cell is just going to absolutely feed off that and fry and make the game unlosable. But when the team is struggling around Cellium, I don't think his play... Cellium is not going to catalyze you to a tournament win or a match win if the other three guys on FaZe aren't doing so well. Maybe a guy like Scrappy could, just based on playstyles. Not to say, really, that one is necessarily better than the other, Scrap and Cell, although this year I do think Scrap has been better. I'd give him the MVP personally. They play in a different way, and that's how Thieves like to play, and, maybe Envoy would have a perspective on how Cellium plays as well, but he also certainly has a perspective on how SupeR plays the game. So SupeR wasn't very happy about that, and after beating them, of course SupeR was going to go over to the other side and give it large to Envoy. Scrap, though, effectively got in his way, and that then became the real beef. Again, what I thought was interesting, because SupeR says, look, I didn't mean to do it to Scrap in the way that I did. He did apologise on Twitter after the fact, and maybe part of him expected the next day, when they went on to play each other again, that maybe things would calm down a bit. Did they really? I would say no, because this was obviously the result when Thieves eventually took him down. There was lots of talk about this moment, actually, because SupeR went for the fist bumps, and HyDra came over, they did fist bump him, and it gave him all sorts of grief. Obviously, Envoy says a similar thing as well, then Scrap gets into it too. Some of the discussion was the fact that his own teammates weren't really defending him. And even though Envoy appears to give him like a nice little, I think he says bad try, does he? Is that what Envoy says? I think he might have said it. I'm not sure what he says. These two words, it might be good try, it might be bad try. I don't know. But it kind of looks like that Envoy is giving him, some respect. But I actually think that Envoy is doing the classic, I'm going to talk a bit of trash while I fist bump you type thing to get back for the team or whatever. So, look, after what happened the day before, things were certainly still pretty heated on the main stage after the fact. The fact that Envoy, or HyDra, stayed here the whole time the rest of his teammates were fist bumping him was pretty hilarious. And, whatever SupeR said after the day before, it didn't really affect things on the Sunday, which is why, as far as I'm concerned, things aren't really going to change into the World Championship either, right? Because that beef is certainly still going to be underlying the comments there that have been exchanged, and it's not like they resolved everything amicably after the fact. Okay, sure, SupeR wanted to back down from what he did to Scrappy initially on the Saturday, but after the Sunday, nothing really changed. And as I said right at the start of the video, this is the way the bracket looks for the World Championship. So on recent form, Thieves would be expected to beat Boston, and that of course would be true based on seeding as well. And while Surge are the higher seed than Heretics, at the most recent tournament, Heretics came third, they made it to the championship Sunday, and Surge bombed out top 12. So if those two teams, Heretics and Thieves, win their first round game, we will get another Thieves-Heretics matchup in the second round, which could be rather exciting. So yeah, very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. If you want something else to watch, you've not watched it already, we put together a documentary about the story of Drazah and Scrap the other day. Obviously, there's lots behind that beef and why it continues to be so relevant and exactly how everything kicked off. And I think if you guys do check it out, there'll probably be some things in there that you'd either forgotten about or missed, or might be a good trip down memory lane. And obviously, it's pretty nice time to think about this rivalry, because going into the World Championship, it's rather plausible these two end up on main stage with each other yet again. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.